updates from the top court on the hijab issue, arguments and counter arguments being presented on the hijab issue, and a bizarre dignity analogy has been drawn by Mr. Dave, who says hijab is a symbol of dignity and it makes a Muslim woman look dignified, just like a Hindu woman looks dignified when she covers her head with sari. Now, as a counter to that, the SG in fact is citing the protests that are taking place in Iran against hijab. Let's in fact bring in our legal editor Harish Nair first to get more updates on the arguments. We're also joined by Madhav and Deepak. Harish, I want to bring you first. Mr. Dave has cited a very bizarre logic. He says hijab makes a woman look more dignified, just like it makes a Hindu woman look dignified when they take a sari or a cover on their head.
Yes, that's right, Swati. Very interesting arguments going on here in the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court hearing petition filed against the Karnataka High Court order in his bid to bolster his argument that hijab is a symbol of dignity. The senior advocate Dushyant Dave went on to say that wearing of hijab is a symbol of dignity for Muslim woman. If a Muslim woman wears a hijab, she looks very dignified at the same time, just like a Hindu woman who in fact puts the sari over her head, that also looks very dignified. So at this point of time, Tushar Mehta in fact has invoked the protest which took place and had said that it was the People Front of India who was behind the entire protest, and the entire hijab row the PFI was responsible for it. It was not a spontaneous act, but engineered, abetted and conspired and abetted and engineered by the PFI, and even the High Court had taken very strong note of it and said that the way the entire hijab controversy broke out, it left many surprised as to there is some unseen hand, and even had directed the Karnataka government to hold a probe and bring to book all the culprits as early as possible and submit a report before the court. So all these were in fact argued by the Solicitor General, who also is now trying to argue that hijab is not an essential religious practice, and even in countries like Iran, which is a Muslim country, now protests are going on. At this juncture, Supreme Court bench asked, where is this protest going on? Then Solicitor General Tushar Mehta said that it's happening in Iran. In fact, he is referring to the ongoing protests against hijab in Iran. So these are the arguments going on in the Supreme Court. Tushar Mehta has vehemently argued that even though right to freedom is a fundamental right, no fundamental right is absolute. There are in fact reasonable restriction to every fundamental right. So wearing hijab is not an essential religious practice, and when the collective right of a institution is pitted against the individual rights of individual, then the collective rights of the institution to impose a uniform gets precedence, and uniform is required for to impose a
Harish, stay on with us. Let's for the moment focus on what Mr. Dushyant Dave has said. We also have our national editor Madhav on the broadcast, and this is going to in fact spark a big debate. Questions are going to be asked on whether a piece of clothing is going to define what dignity is, and the meaning of dignity might differ from one person to another. Also, is Mr. Dave implying that if you do not cover your head, if a woman does not wear a hijab or a sari or a pallu on her head, she's not dignified?
Well, that's certainly, of course, going to be one of the most important aspects of this entire arguments that are coming out of the court. But of course, legally speaking, we have seen many bizarre arguments that has come out not just over here at the Supreme Court, but also the High Court in the recent past. But be that as it may, very, very important that the Solicitor General has now referred to the happenings in Iran in context of this entire hijab hearing, and has said that even in countries which are Islamic countries where the state religion is Islam, women are rebelling against hijab. The bench then asked, where are they protesting? He refers to the protests taking place in Iran. So very, very important point being made over here. We have seen, of course, how women who were in fact attacked by the religious police over there, the hijab police as it were, because of course the fact that there is Islamic law in presence in operation there in Iran, and how of course she later lost her life, leading to widespread protest in Iran particularly against the hijab. Now, of course, we are seeing all of that being referred to as far as this particular hearing is concerned. So very, very important hearing that is currently underway, and an important point being made by the Solicitor General as far as the hijab is concerned. Harish has bring us all these updates from inside the court, and Harish has also brought us this update that, where Supreme Court says that it must be proved beyond doubt that wearing of hijab was a threat to public order, public health or morality. And then Solicitor General, in fact, giving an example of Anand Margi saying they take out a procession doing Tandav Nitya, drinking wine on the road. They can't call it an essential religious practice. Justice Zulia then says, does this pertinent case fall in that category? And in fact, he goes on to give several other examples, including of a Rath Yatra during COVID, and saying that it is essential practice. So all of these are some of the arguments that are currently being made. Of course, the important aspect is that the Solicitor General is now submitting the government's point of view, the Karnataka government's point of view on this entire issue. And of course, the court also raising certain questions as far as this particular set of arguments is concerned. So very important set of submissions that are currently being made in the Apex Court. Back to you.
Right.